Okay, folks, if we're going to understand states of consciousness and sleep and all those related issues that we do need to understand and the biological components that go with them, we need to start off with this thing called a circadian rhythm. This is very important for us to understand before we get into all the specifics of sleep stages and dreaming and all that stuff. Let's first start with circadian rhythms, which are, as you can see the definition here, your body's functions and adaptation to, that part's very important, an adaptation to the light cycle in your environment. The 24-hour light cycle, your body, every human's body, adapts to the light cycle that they live in, that you live in. There are certain biological changes that happen throughout your body throughout the daytime and the nighttime, and those cycles try to repeat themselves. Of course, those functions try to repeat themselves and adjust to the light cycle. We're going to see there's a converse relationship here between a few chemicals that we've mentioned before: melatonin, which is secreted by the pineal gland and makes us sleepy, and epinephrine. Epinephrine is one of the stress hormones. It puts us into fight or flight mode. It's part of what we tend to call adrenaline, along with cortisol. Cortisol is another one of the stress hormones. So cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, they're all part of adrenaline. So to start off, I want you to consider we're going to have an opposite relationship between adrenaline, which gets us gone and pumped and hyped and motivated, versus its opponent, melatonin, which relaxes the body, calms the body down, slows down the body, helps us feel sleepy. Okay, so the first thing to notice about circadian rhythms is how these changes happen throughout the day and night. You look at this image down here, it starts at midnight at the top of what might be sort of like a clock. And it's a very general graphic, but it shows us around 2 a.m. If we fall asleep around midnight-ish, we're going to have our deepest sleep within those first couple hours. We'll see that later on when we study sleep stages. When we get to stages 3 and 4, those deep, deep stages of sleep are happening in the first few hours of sleep. And this is where melatonin is highest, as we'll see. The melatonin, if we go back in the clock, around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, melatonin started secreting into our bloodstream from the pineal gland. And there's not a coincidence, that's happening when it's dark in our environment, and it helps us go to sleep, that melatonin does, and helps us reach our deepest sleep. We have our lowest body temperatures, in the middle of the night, 3 and 4 a.m. But then around 6 a.m., 7 a.m., our blood pressure, body temperature, all that stuff starts to increase. And by about 7:30 a.m. for most of us, that melatonin secretion stops. The pineal gland stops pumping out melatonin because you should be getting ready to wake up if you're most people living in most industrialized parts of the world, even non-industrialized parts of the world, even more so. If you're living in a more traditional part of the world, you're likely to wake up with the sun and go to sleep at night. If nothing else, this circadian rhythm and the changes we're about to see suggest that humans are not nocturnal by nature. Like biologically, we are set up to be awake during the day when the sun is shining and to sleep at night. Again, melatonin secretes at nighttime naturally. I should say, actually, melatonin secretes in the dark, and it tends to be darkest in our environment at nighttime. So anyway, about 7:30 in the morning, the melatonin secretion stops because the sun has risen, and most of the people in the world are likely to get up and start their day. So this is about the time, it doesn't say it on the graphic here, but this, about 7:30, 8 o'clock a.m., is when cortisol and epinephrine start to get to their highest levels of production, at least that production starts. Epinephrine, cortisol is pumped into the bloodstream to help us get out of bed, to start our day. We have our highest alertness around 10 a.m., noon, we're doing great. even around 2:30. Look at how behavior and mood can be affected by circadian rhythm. Our best motor coordination could occur around 2:30 in the afternoon. That's when melatonin is nowhere to be found in the bloodstream because the sun is shining, quite possibly. We have a lot of light in our environment. So epinephrine and cortisol are still doing their job. We have fast reaction times in the afternoon. We've got our greatest cardiovascular efficiency. Our muscle strength is good in early evening because we still have epinephrine and cortisol, present in the bloodstream and doing their thing. But as time keeps ticking and we start getting to sundown, so 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, here's where the cortisol levels and the epinephrine levels have decreased a bunch and the melatonin secretion starts again. Now, this is all going to happen normally, assuming, maybe you should assume like Monday through Friday during the school year, you're getting out of bed sometime around 7:30 a.m. and you're going to bed around 10, 11, 12 at night, something like that. Your body's going to adjust to this production and keep melatonin levels high at night and melatonin levels low during the day. Daytime, we've got epinephrine and cortisol levels going for us, helping us being alert and active. But those epinephrine and cortisol levels are supposed to be low at nighttime to help us go to sleep. Here's another graphic that helps you see that converse relationship between melatonin in the red line here. We don't have values on the y-axis, but we know, generally speaking here, there's a converse relationship. So we start off at the middle of the night. Melatonin levels are high, helping us sleep, stay relaxed to get a good night's sleep. But those melatonin levels drop by about 7:30 a.m., which is when those melatonin levels are going to stay low throughout the day, but go to the black line now. The cortisol and epinephrine levels go up early in the morning to help us get out of bed and do our thing. And then they stay relatively high, but they're dropping throughout the day as the sun is moving away from us, right? Or as the earth is rotating, our part of the earth is rotating away from the sun. To us, it's as if the sun is moving away. And as the sun is moving away from us, cortisol and epinephrine levels are decreasing. They get to their lowest at nighttime when the melatonin is starting to increase. So again, you have this converse relationship, and this happens every day and every night throughout our lives, or at least that's what our bodies want to happen. Our bodies crave this adjustment, this normalcy, this converse relationship between our stress hormones, that keep us active and motivated, versus melatonin, which helps us feel sleepy and get a good night's sleep. Now, how's this all possible? It's largely due to the hypothalamus. We've learned about some of these brain parts. So if we look in a cross section of the brain here, the hypothalamus is this like a trapezoidal shaped yellow area under the thalamus, right? This is our sensory relay center of the brain. Under the thalamus, we have the hypothalamus, the maintenance worker of the brain. And way back here in purple, we've got the pineal gland. The pineal gland is going to secrete the melatonin, which makes us feel sleepy. The cortisol and epinephrine, we don't see it on this diagram here, is going to be way down here. From that stuff's going to come from the adrenal glands, from on top of the kidneys. The hypothalamus is our maintenance worker, right? Our custodian of the body. So inside the hypothalamus, look at this little green section. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. How about that for a word? Suprachiasmatic nucleus is a part of the hypothalamus that registers the amount of light we have in our environment. Okay, as we keep seeing, the hypothalamus is really essential to us as a custodian of the body. It's in charge of all the glands, even the master gland here. The pituitary is the master gland, but the hypothalamus is the boss of that master gland even. Okay, we've learned the hypothalamus has one section to it that can make us feel hunger, and another section of it that can make us feel full, satisfied. Another part of the hypothalamus, very similar to the hunger thing, makes us feel thirsty, and another part makes us feel quenched, satisfied. Another part of the hypothalamus can make a person feel sexually motivated, and a different part of the hypothalamus can make a person feel sexually satisfied. Well, here, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, its job in the hypothalamus is to tell how much light there is in the environment and then what to do about it. So, if you're in a very well lit environment, you have light coming in through the eyes out here. That information is passed, the light information to the occipital lobe eventually, so we can have visual processing. The occipital lobe is back here, but check this out. On the way to the occipital lobe, some of that visual information is going to pass through the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus. And the neurons there are going to start firing, telling the hypothalamus basically, hey, we got a light, we got a lot of light. There's tons of light in here, hypothalamus. We got lots of light going on. And the hypothalamus is going to say, okay, cool. Thanks, suprachiasmatic nucleus. We got a lot of light. Hey, pineal gland, keep that melatonin away. That's the hypothalamus talking to the pineal gland. It's all corny and cheesy to talk about the brain this way, but communication is happening via neurons, and we can imagine it's something like this anyway, verbally. Even though it doesn't literally happen in words, of course. The hypothalamus is telling the pineal gland, we got tons of light, so keep that melatonin away. Pineal gland's like, okay, boss, no melatonin, right? Hypothalamus might be, hey, got plenty of light. Adrenal glands, give us cortisol and epinephrine, right? So the pituitary gland tells the adrenal glands, give us plenty of epinephrine, cortisol, give us, this motivation, activity. Adrenal glands way down on top of the kidneys go, okay, boss, epinephrine, cortisol, keeping us alert and active. Now, we're in third period in the middle of some school day, and it's a class where the teacher wants to show a video, so they shut the lights out. It can even be at 11 o'clock in the morning if the lights are shut out, even though 11 o'clock a.m. is usually when cortisol levels are high, melatonin levels are low. Check it out. That's the normal circadian rhythm. But if we're sitting in a classroom or movie theater, whatever, and the lights are out and we're in darkness, that light information, hey, lights are out, comes in through the eyes and passes through here again on the way back to the occipital lobe. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is going to register, whoa, we're in darkness. Hey, hypothalamus, it's dark in here. Do your thing. Hypothalamus is like, ooh, darkness, okay. Pineal gland, give us melatonin. Pineal gland says, okay, boss. Pumps out melatonin, which is going to make us feel sleepy. To recap, the pineal gland is giving us melatonin when we're in the dark. It doesn't matter what time of day that is. The hypothalamus has that job to tell the pineal gland when it's dark so we can have melatonin. It's just for most of us, the dark environment we're going to be in is going to exist at nighttime. Generally speaking, that's the case. Now, the invention of the light bulb messed that all up, right? Some people work night shifts. They'll be in, well-lit environments at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because they're working overnight in a factory or an office building or whatever they're doing. Well, if it's 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and the lights are on, melatonin is not doing its normal job. Melatonin is being held back because we're in a well-lit area. Okay? And if that person working the night shift gets off, goes home, tries to sleep at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning back here, it's going to help them a lot to make their room really dark. Because if they're trying to sleep, they need these melatonin levels high. And that's not going to happen if they're in a well-lit environment. So the person working the night shift needs to, reverse the effects of these hormones at opposite times of the day, if that makes sense. They can do that by 11:30 in the morning when they're trying to sleep. Get room darkening shades, shut down all the lights, keep the TV off, help the hypothalamus register darkness to get the pineal gland to secrete melatonin to make that person feel sleepy, even though it's 11:30 in the morning and most of us are going about our day with very low melatonin levels because we're out in the light. Okay? Point here is, folks, your body will adjust to what you put it through here. Okay? So throughout the week, Monday through Friday, if you're getting up around 7 a.m. and going to bed around 11 p.m. or something, your body will get used to secreting epinephrine and cortisol in the morning, melatonin at night, because that's what you're experiencing day in, day out. Now, think about what happens on the weekend if you sleep in till 3 in the afternoon or something. Don't lie. Some of you have done it. I was a teenager once. I know what it's like. Saturdays roll around. Maybe you don't have anything to do. I'm staying up all night Friday. I'm not even going to bed till 4 a.m. And you sleep until like 3 in the afternoon. And now let's think about what happens there. First, go back to the morning. You stayed awake until 4 a.m., huh? That's when you went to sleep. Did you notice around 3:30 a.m. or so, you started getting kind of giddy? You started getting silly. If you're hanging out with friends, you're laughing at the silliest things. You feel amazing. If you ever pull an all-nighter, maybe even stay awake till 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m., you haven't gone to sleep at all, man, early in the morning, you're going to feel amazing. You're going to feel like you don't even have to sleep. Sleep is overrated. I could go through my whole day because I'm ready to go. 6:30 a.m., 7 a.m. rolls around. I'm feeling good. Yeah, that's because your cortisol and epinephrine levels are high from earlier in the week when you trained your body to wake you up at that point. Your circadian rhythm, even if you pull an all-nighter and you're awake at 6:30 a.m., you've stayed awake just in time to feel your cortisol surge, your epinephrine surge, because that's what your body's used to happening. That's what you've adapted to throughout the week. All right? But in the afternoon, man, oh, you pull that all-nighter. If you don't go to sleep at all around 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as the cortisol and epinephrine levels start to dip, you're going to crash. It's going to feel awful. Okay? So that can, the circadian rhythm can explain your second wind that you get if you pull an all-nighter. Well, let's talk about the other way. Let's say you fall asleep, like I had said earlier. You fall asleep at like 4 a.m., you sleep until 3. So you're waking up right about here. And you wake up. Have you ever woken up sleepy? Doesn't that suck? Have you ever slept so much that you wake up feeling like you need more sleep? And you're like, oh, what is this? I just slept for like 11 hours. Why am I sleepy? Because of circadian rhythm. You just woke up at 3 in the afternoon. You've missed out on your cortisol and epinephrine surge that are supposed to help you feel awake and alert throughout the day. You've waken up at 3 in the afternoon just in time for the downside of cortisol and epinephrine and the beginnings of epinephrine starting to surge. You've woken up just in time to feel your sleepy hormone a little bit, okay? Because of the circadian rhythm that you've adapted throughout your normal school week, if that makes sense. All right? So you got to be real careful. Generally speaking, I know this isn't always easy to do, but generally speaking, your body will function better and you will feel more awake during the day. You'll have an easier time going to sleep at night if you let your circadian rhythm do its job, if you let your body adapt to what it wants to do. Try to go to bed at a decent time at night and make it about the same time every night. Get a good night's sleep, maybe 7 or 8 hours if you can. I know that's a luxury for some people. But go to sleep around the same time every night and try to wake up around the same time every morning, even on weekends. I know that's lame. But if you do that, then your body will adjust throughout every week, being, high on cortisol and epinephrine during the day, helping you feel alert and stimulated and motivated, and helping the melatonin surge late at night, helping you go to sleep and stay asleep. And if you're watching this going, yeah, right, weekends, like I'm staying up with my friends, I'm doing fun stuff, whatever. I get it. But this is especially important to realize if you're the kind of person who's always tired during the day and or always has a hard time falling asleep at night. If that's you and you've got those sleep and awake problems, it could be because you're constantly changing up your sleep schedule. You're keeping your circadian rhythm from adapting and adjusting to a normal schedule. So keep that advice in mind. Two more things to talk about here about circadian rhythms. This could explain jet lag. Jet lag is a feeling a person gets when they travel overseas via an airplane. And when they get to their destination, they feel exhausted. This should sort of make sense. Think about it. If you leave Hagerstown, Maryland, right, or Washington, D.C. at like 9 a.m., and you're on an airplane for, say, 7 or 8 hours, you're traveling to London, England, let's say. You're on an airplane for 7 or 8 hours. When you step off that airplane, your body is going to be, you know, acting, reacting chemically as if it's 7 or 8 hours past 9 a.m. So you're like over here, cortisol, epinephrine levels are starting to dip. Melatonin levels aren't super high just yet. But when you step off that plane, it's a different time of day. You just stepped into a different time of day than what your body had been adjusted to by living in Hagerstown. So you step off the plane, it's a completely different time of day, and your body's confused, right? Your hypothalamus is registering, like, this ain't right. This doesn't look like, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon Hagerstown time. What's going on here? It's a totally different totally different time of day. And your brain is now confused. Also, it might be nighttime and it's totally dark, and your hypothalamus is like, ooh, time to shut this sucker down. It's nighttime, it's dark, sleep, right? You've got confusion, you've got, darkness in your environment, possibly. Your brain's way of handling that is go to sleep. We'll figure this out later. Go to sleep. You feel lethargic and fatigued and dragged down and exhausted. Jet lag is a terrible feeling. But here's the good news. Here's what will save your vacation if this ever happens to you. Make yourself go outside or expose yourself to light during your new environment's daytime. If you're in London, England, you're going to want to sleep that whole next day. Jet lag is terrible. It's exhausting. But force yourself to be awake when it's daytime in London. Like if it's 8 a.m. in London, you're going to be groggy and exhausted. But force yourself to get light. Even if it's cloudy and rainy in London, turn the lights on in your hotel room. Go down to the hotel lobby, to the breakfast bar, whatever. Get artificial light into your eyes even. Tell the hypothalamus, whoa, it's daytime now. No matter what we think it was, it's daytime now. So keep that melatonin away. Give me cortisol, epinephrine. That's going to make you feel more alert eventually. And that night, when it's dark in your environment, if it's 10, 11 o'clock, midnight, make sure you're in a dark room so your melatonin can do your job to make you feel sleepy. Folks, the way you reset this biological clock, the way you reset your circadian rhythm is with light. That's how the hypothalamus can tell what you need based on the environment you're in. Okay? One last thing about that should make sense now that I've saved your vacations in the future and we understand how to feel better during the day and be energized when we want and not be so exhausted all the time. Now let's talk about depression, because there's this thing, that's a nice word, Ryder. There's this form of depression, folks, called SAD, coincidentally enough. That's seasonal affective disorder. Seasonal affective disorder. It's a type of depression that's triggered by seasonal change. And you're not going to be surprised, if you don't already know this, to learn that when people suffer from seasonal affective disorder, their depression is worse in the fall and winter months. Think about it. That's when days get shorter as far as daylight anyway, right? In the winter time, it starts getting dark at like 4:30 in the afternoon for us. And it's not light in the morning until 7 or 8 o'clock, right? We have limited daylight in the winter months. So we have a lot more darkness. It gets dark earlier, it stays darker for longer, which is the opposite in the summertime. Summertime, we've got our longest days. Sun comes up maybe 6 a.m. or so and goes down in the summer months like 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night sometimes. We've got a lot of daylight in the summer. Well, think about what we just learned. Does that maybe help understand seasonal affective disorder to an extent, at least? To an extent. With extended hours of darkness in the winter months, the hypothalamus registers all this darkness and tells the pineal gland to give us melatonin more often throughout our day and night. With all that melatonin, it makes us feel tired and groggy and exhausted. And this could link to the Schachter two-factor emotional theory, right? Cognitive labeling, cognitive appraisal, those cognitive aspects of emotion. This all comes together, my goodness. Sorry, I get excited about psychology. I am a nerd. But think about it. To some extent, anyway, a person is feeling lethargic and exhausted and just unmotivated and terrible. They start interpreting what's going on. They might not think, oh, this is probably because my hypothalamus is telling my pineal gland to give me a bunch of melatonin. Stinking hypothalamus. No, they might label their experience as, oh, I'm so tired. I don't even want to do anything. I don't want to get out of bed. Like, what is this? Oh, what is this? I'm so sad. I know I'm simplifying depression here a great deal, but what if an aspect of seasonal affective disorder is our interpretation of what our bodies are going through? This feeling of sadness, it could be very, very real. I'm not saying it's a made up or a misunderstood thing, but it could partially be from an interpretation of our lethargy, our lack of motivation, our just overwhelming feeling of grossness could make us feel sad and terrible and like we don't want to start anything. We don't want to do anything. We don't want to go out with people. We don't want to do the things that usually bring us joy. And our depression just spirals out of control. Okay? So, one way that seasonal depression, seasonal affective disorder is treated, folks, check this out, is with a light box. What? I hope this is making sense. This lady who's got a little grin on her face, like she don't even look depressed, what's up? But she's here maybe having her morning coffee, reading a little magazine or something in the morning, and she's got this artificial light box, looks like the largest iPad you'll ever see in your life, just emitting intense light into her eyes, telling the hypothalamus, hey, we got a bunch of light, keep that melatonin at bay. And this has been seen through research as an effective treatment for seasonal affective disorder. Consider this woman who suffers from seasonal depression, let's assume. She's going to sit in front of this light box, eating her breakfast, reading her magazine, just chilling out in the morning. Maybe to get herself going, she gets out of bed, she's got her breakfast there, her morning coffee. Caffeine probably won't hurt to feel a little stimulated as well. But this light is helping to reset her circadian rhythm, get the epinephrine flowing in the morning, the cortisol in the morning. She'll probably sit at this light box around 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the evening. Early evening, let's get light into the brain. Keep the melatonin at bay. It's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or it's maybe 6 o'clock in the evening. We don't want to feel lethargic yet. We don't want to feel tired. It's dark as anything outside in December, 6 p.m. Holy moly. Let's sit in front of the light box to counter the darkness in our environment. Keep that melatonin away until later at night. This is shown to have positive effects as a treatment for seasonal affective disorder for all the reasons we've discussed. Turns out circadian rhythms are totally important for lots of reasons. All right, folks, thank you. See you later.